Hi, today we'll talk about another issue with car companies and, you guessed it, data privacy. As it turns out, 8 car companies have been caught wrongfully sharing drivers' data with the police. We have a bit to unpack in this video, so let's just get right into it. You see, in 2015, the Consumer Privacy Protection Principles Agreement, or CPPA, that was a mouthful, was created with the intention to improve security of drivers' data. One important rule from this agreement requires that any government request for location data must come with a warrant or court order. At the time, a total of 19 automakers pledged to this agreement, including Honda, Ford, BMW, General Motors, and Tesla. However, though, in 2024, it was found that 8 automakers had been providing vehicle data way too easily in response to subpoenas from law enforcement agencies and without explicit consent from the car owners. This action is in contrast to what was established in the CPPA in 2015. We're going to go over some terminology here so that we can all be on the same page. So we're going to start with subpoena. A subpoena is usually filled out by an attorney. It only becomes binding when approved by a court or judge. It's commonly used to require someone to provide evidence or testimony in a legal case. Court orders are legal commands from court that require specific actions or stops certain behaviors, such as orders to make child support payment or restraining order. This can be orders to make child support payments or a restraining order. A warrant is a type of court order issued by court to direct law enforcement officers to search, seize, or account for a specific item. Now, coming back to these automakers, here are the 8 automakers who share data with the police when they receive subpoenas. They are Toyota, Nissan, Subaru, Volkswagen, BMW, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, and Kia. In May 2024, lawmakers emphasized that these 8 automakers misled drivers about sharing vehicle location data with the police and that they have gone back on their 2015 promise to protect that information. In a letter sent to Federal Trade Commission, Senators Ed Markey and Ron Wyden wrote that automakers have kept consumers in the dark regarding their actual practices, and multiple companies misled consumers for over a decade by failing to honor the industry's own voluntary privacy guidelines. Lawmakers made it clear they're not saying car companies broke any privacy laws. Rather, they are pointing out that these car companies were deceptive. The automakers promised one thing but did another, which essentially goes against the set rules by the FTC under the Federal Trade Commission Act. Section 5 of this act provides that unfair or deceptive acts or practices in or affecting commerce are illegal. This allows the FTC to investigate consumer complaints regarding businesses suspected of deceptive practices. The FTC can also seek civil penalties or compensation for affected consumers. After the investigation, Senator Wyden found that only GM, Ford, Honda, Stellantis, and Tesla required a warrant before providing location data to police. Also, Tesla is the only company that informs car owners when government requests are made on their data. If you remember from our GM lawsuit video, these 8 car companies are also part of the 25 car companies criticized by Mozilla for collecting vast amounts of data and having poor privacy practices. Now, let's look at why car companies in general share data with the police. The primary reason why automakers share data with the police is for public safety and crime prevention. By providing data to law enforcement, automakers help with investigations or locate stolen vehicles. I mean, that sounds fair, right? So then, what's the problem? The real issue lies in how the automakers share data and whether they are truly keeping their pledge. Toyota spokesperson Corey Profit told Automotive News that their employees do not share location data with the police without the customer's consent or unless required by law for national security or to prevent harm, injury, or loss. Similarly, Robert Moran from Mercedes-Benz stated that they respond to subpoenas as required by the state or federal laws with very few exceptions. Other car makers involved in this issue did not provide any comments. Their lack of clarity raises concerns about their transparency and whether they truly uphold their pledges. Aside from that though, sharing driver's data with the police comes with significant downsides for consumers. One major risk is invasion of privacy. Senators Ed Markey and Ron Wyden said that vehicle location data can be used to track and identify Americans who have traveled to seek abortions in another state, attended protests, joined support groups for addiction, or practiced a particular faith. There are many personal details and locations we are not comfortable sharing with the police. Also, there's the risk of discriminatory practices. Drivers' data can be misused in many ways and could lead to biased policing and unfair targeting of certain groups. A 2020 study by Ravi Shroff at New York University found that black drivers were about 20% more likely to be stopped by the police. Another study by the Institute of Social Research, which analyzed nearly 100 million traffic stops, showed that once stopped, black drivers were searched about 3 to 5% of the time. Other racial groups had lower search rates. With car manufacturers sharing drivers' data with the police, there's a real concern that this information could be misused, leading to serious consequences for innocent people. But here's the thing though, it's not just law enforcement that gets this data. Other entities also receive data from automakers. Besides insurance companies, data brokers, or the police, automakers also share data with government agencies. For example, agencies like Customs and Border Protection, also known as CBP, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, can request data location from car companies like General Motors. They use this data to track and identify individuals involved in illegal activities, such as immigration violations. Law enforcement and government agencies can also obtain drivers' data through data brokers, which allows them to bypass the need for warrants by purchasing this information instead. Again, this practice isn't prohibited by the Fourth Amendment. Senators Ed Markey and Ron Wyden have been at the forefront of this issue with 8 automakers sharing data with the police. Both senators have requested that the Federal Trade Commission conduct a thorough investigation on the automakers that broke their pledge. In their letters to the FTC, they emphasize that government agencies must obtain a warrant to access private content, such as emails, private photos stored in the cloud, or to search a phone. They argue that location data is equally sensitive and should have the same strong protections. In 2015, Senator Markey introduced the Security and Privacy in Your Car Act, also known as Spy Car Act. This legislation would establish federal guidelines on how car companies can use and share data. One key part of this bill is a rating system or cyber dashboard that shows drivers how well their cars protect their data privacy. This information will be presented clearly and simply, like a window sticker. Although the bill mainly focuses on improving car cybersecurity, it will also help drivers know what happens to their data and how safe it is. The Spy Car Act, however, hasn't been passed into law. Even though it has been reintroduced multiple times, it hasn't moved beyond the committee stages in the Congress. And there are a few reasons for why. The first reason is that Congress deals with many legislative priorities and cybersecurity in cars hasn't made it to the top of that agenda. Second, automakers and industry stakeholders resist regulations because of extra costs and changes to their operations. The automotive industry uses its power and influence to slow and stop strict laws. In fact, according to Open Secrets, a nonpartisan group that tracks lobbying efforts, automobile industry spent over $80 million on lobbying in 2023. And just in the first quarter of 2024, they've already spent $23 million. To keep your data secure, the first thing you can do is to remove as much of your personal information from the internet as possible. Here's how. Visit www.mydataremoval.com and you can run a free scan to see where your data is showing up online. Use the free opt-out guides to remove your exposed data. Just follow the steps and check the list of data brokers and people search sites that might have your information. The second thing you can do is to use the Vehicle Privacy Report tool, which allows car owners to access privacy facts about their cars. Whenever possible, opt out of data sharing features in your vehicle settings. Many connected cars have options in their infotainment or settings menu to limit data sharing. Take the time to go through these settings and adjust them to your comfort level. However though, this process can sometimes be complicated. For example, a couple bought a Honda and tried to opt out of data sharing through their infotainment system. They got a message that said, unable to change the settings while the network is invalid. When the wife called the dealer, she was told that she needed to download the Honda Link app to disable data sharing. After downloading the app and agreeing to the lengthy 14-page terms and conditions, she successfully turned off data sharing. But she still had to opt out through the infotainment system and not the app. This just shows you how hard it can be to disable data sharing. But despite these challenges, it is worth your effort to do that if you value your privacy. There are a lot of issues when it comes to car makers and data privacy. And it's clear that we need stricter regulations